Property Matters live stream. At the behest of Hamish McLay of Search Convey, we are joined by our special guest, Silas G. Lees of Wigarang UK, and of course, Steve Day, the man in his own red padded cell. And you may ask why he's there. Well, we'll get to that later. But for the moment, I'm going to throw the ball straight over to Hamish, and of course, present him with today's proposition. How safe is the Building Safety Act?
Oh, not very. Can I just actually offer our apologies, really? Because we should have let you know about this, so I hope there's not too many of you. But if you've come here to listen to what we're speaking about, we're speaking about exactly what the Earl of Lytton would have actually himself been speaking about. And we will be getting his contribution. We're confident of that. So keep in touch. But do stay on, though. Do stay on, because
apparently today's topic will roll at least for now until Steve and his compatriots get their just desserts, as it were.
Oh, yeah, we'll actually be carrying on. Anyway, that aside, many of you who were actually sort of listening in before will probably remember, or watching will remember. Actually, both Steve and Silas have been with us before on different sort of subject matter, but we do think it's vitally important that people know exactly what's going on. Now, padded cell aside, I mean, Steve is in that unfortunate position because he's in that property he happens to be in. But what has brought about some of the consequential results out of what governments partly tried to do was to create the Building Safety Act. A big problem with any act that sort of comes out, it's a little bit like promises about elections, isn't it? Basically, these things are actually said, whether they actually happen, whether they actually do. So it's called the Building Safety Act.
I think it's the difference between doing something and pledging to doing something.
Well, the Building Safety Act, though, however, it has done one thing very, very effectively: messed the whole system up. But other than that, there is a positive, because it has outlined, because of the investigations necessary, it's carried out investigations on. I mean, Steve is very, very familiar with these figures, but I'm sure there's over 10,000 properties, 10,000 batches of flats like that people are living in a very difficult situation because of what's been said in the Building Safety Act. So we need to look a little bit at that. And I think this is what we wanted to speak about today, because Steve, he's only with another 1,000 people, but there are tens of thousands of people in the same situation. And that's what we're trying to do. Let's get round and let's see if we can find ways of getting information and getting the right things to happen. So, Building Safety Act, is it safe? For a few reasons. However, it's the damage it's caused, I think.
Steve, welcome back again. He's not in a padded cell. He's actually in a recording studio. Is that for a radio show?
No, it's specifically for you guys. I'm very privileged to be on this podcast, so I thought I would try and up my connectivity as a result of previous sort of blackouts with my Wi-Fi. So here we are.
Well, fantastic, and in a lovely, almost anechoic room as well. So, Steve, how goes the good fight? I mean, Steve, as some of you will know, is by dearth of none of his efforts, effectively locked into a situation in artillery. I get it wrong. Artillery Quays, yes?
Yeah.
There's a royal prefix.
Oh.
but mainly right.
Royal.
Well, I just wish the king could come over and help us, really. But never mind. In the absence,
if you could spend a day in there and be shown the inadequacies, I think it might wake his ideas up. But in truth, your fight is to get recognition for the deficiencies in the way it was clad and put together by a certain Barrett Holmes. And
that's right. Yeah.
And just give us a quick update as to where that fight lies.
So previously, we established that the builder put our lives at risk for 22 years by installing a flammable cladding with polystyrene that's highly flammable on our buildings without protecting it properly. and it was condemned by the cladding manufacturer. It said they installed it dangerously. Admitted to in writing by Barratt themselves that they'd used the wrong fixings, plastic instead of metal, and also condemned by 2 fire reports. So they didn't do a very good job. So we've established wrongdoing and unlawful installations. So what they want to do now is force us to accept flammable panels and flammable insulation to remain on our building, which condemns us to a B1 EWS rating, which basically means permanently high insurance forever. It's unlikely to the government. The insurers are digging in and saying, well, if you leave flammable material on buildings, then we're going to charge your customers for it. And that just passes the risk on to the homeowner like me. And Barratt's position is, well, it's an insurance industry issue. Good luck. But what they really need to do in our case, as they put our lives at risk for 22 years through unlawful installations, they need to go the extra mile and remove all the flammable cladding so we can get rid of this insurance risk and get us an EWS A1, which means no flammable material remains.
At which point your insurance becomes tenable.
Yeah.
Right, as opposed to impossible. Silas, a very good and warm welcome to you from Property Matters.
Thank you, Convey.
What is this is not a standalone issue. This is not just Royal Artillery Quays issue, is it? This is quite widespread.
From what I'm understanding, Gareth, that's correct, and it does seem to be intrinsic within the building industry that there are areas where developers have cut corners and have left homeowners with the issue, and it isn't necessarily restricted to just modern house building. For example, there's a lot of cases around cavity wall insulation where people have injected foam into the cavity on the pretense that it would increase the quality and the airtightness and the insulation qualities of the building, and then being left with a problem. But I think in this specific instance, I think it's tragic that a developer has used shoddy practice on site, installed something that could have passed building regs and fire safety protection, but didn't because it was so poorly installed, and is then trying to bat the problem off year after year, month after month, to ultimately the homeowner. And I would say it comes down to 2 things. Well, you either pay the increased premium for the clients of those homes because you're refusing to do something about it, or you remove the cladding and, as you say, put the situation right.
Well, surely paying the increased premium doesn't solve the problem. It just means that if they were to burn down, they'll have some recourse. But we'd rather avoid the former issue entirely, wouldn't we?
100%. And I think that leads nicely. And I don't know, Steve can probably fill us in on this one, but the thought I had was around corporate responsibility here, where a defective issue has been highlighted and recognised by the builder themselves. Where does that liability stop should the worst happen? And I think if you look at the construction industry, when they brought in a corporate manslaughter regulation, how quickly health and safety, or the approach to health and safety, changed on site. And I think if that hasn't been discussed already, it certainly needs to be at the forefront of discussions to make the board culpable and liable. And the impact is, well, you don't fix it, and you don't fix it quickly, well, you can be incarcerated for 10 years and reflect on your sins, as it were.
Well, before I jump to Steve to get his response to that, let me ask you the question. Mm-hmm. How safe do you think the Building Safety Act is as it stands?
I think it has caused a lot of confusion from what I'm understanding, particularly in relation to the conveyancing process of properties, that there is a lot of uncertainty within the conveyancing industry. And so the detrimental impact is very, very delayed sales, lots of inquiries, protracted issues around that side of things, and a general lack of certainty around what is covered and what isn't. And also the, shall we say, the teeth that this regulation has to correct issues that such as what we're talking about here today.
It does appear to me that there's a lot of hot air being blown here, but unless there's teeth to match, nothing will actually change. Steve, can I get your response to what Silas was pointing out earlier?
No, absolutely. And yes, I agree. I think really those it'd be great if the directors themselves of these builders were held responsible and could go in the can if they break the law and put plastic fixings instead of metal on fire breaks. Plastic doesn't go well with fire, does it? When it's meant to keep the thing on the wall. So if you're so crass with your standards, yes, of course you should be in the jail, and it will make other builders take note. But on the Building Safety Act, I wanted to give you a picture of just how unfair it is from the point of the consumer. So I'll try and whittle it down, but basically there's two definitions of defect. There's the one under the Building Safety Act, which is stricter and covers structural defects and fire safety defects. And then there's the one called life safety critical defects, which is for the developer contract, which are these contracts where the developers signed up to fix all their buildings above 11 meters for the last 30 years. But they've whittled down the standard to leave flammable material that's banned on the new standard in the Building Safety Act to remain on existing buildings. And they've done that with the reasoning that it's a proportionate approach. So you're not making the builder do anything more than what's considered to make it safe. However, the insurers reject that position because they're interested in the building risk, not just the life risk. And that's where we have a breakdown. Now, Property Mart, the biggest estate agent body, has observed and written to the government and said that growing numbers of insurers are declining to insure buildings at a B1 standard, which means this flammable material remains on the building. And then there was a great quote from the ABI, which was talking about their reinsurance scheme, because they recognise there's a big problem here. But what they're saying is their members not only want to see the life safety critical defects fixed, but also the building defects. So we've even had it from the ABI now, and I'll share that for you, both of those quotes to distribute. But that's categoric proof now that it's a bad idea for homeowners to end up having flammable material on. And then the Building Safety Act.
On one side, that it's going to provide them with their home with risk, but on the other side is it makes it untenable to insure. Yes,
absolutely. And the other cruel thing in the Building Safety Act, they've excluded 1.7 million homeowners. That figure comes from the National Residential Landlords Association, who recognise that the Building Safety Act actually excludes classes of leaseholder from protection, and those that have bought more than 3 homes, those that have basically made the unfortunate decision to buy their freehold, and those in buildings below 11 meters. Now, why should these people be excluded from recourse and redress against defective building? 1.7 million people. And so that's a huge problem. And countless attempts have been made by myself and the Earl in the House of Lords to try and say you need to protect everyone in our consumer protection with our scheme. However, it's fallen on deaf ears. And at the moment, 1.7 million people are finding themselves excluded by this act. So it's a very cruel act, really. Although there are good things in it, it's needless exclusions to protect the builders. So what we've jokingly called it is the Builder Safety Act, making the world safe for builders.
Well, Hamish, it appears that the Building Safety Act doesn't seem to cover all.
I think it's one of the challenges as well with we have a new government coming in. It doesn't matter which government it is, but it's a completely new government, completely different people looking after things. We're just fortunate. We have some very canny, very effective, hopefully, people behind them. They basically haven't changed. The civil service is a civil service. So those that had the information have actually sort of got it. But is when we actually look and reflect on the dangers and the unsafe nature of the Building Safety Act, there is a big concern that if we have a new government with new people in it, they're going to push ahead and they'll accept them because the big builders have got lots of money and they can put lots of pressure on and sort of say how wonderfully clever they are. And somebody's going to listen to the CEO of Barrett rather than they're going to listen to me. What the heck does he know? Well, something deeper than that. But I think we do have this challenge is getting recognition of the right things. And it's very much, you can make a very interesting comparison here. The Property Lawyers Action Group took action against the Law Society because the Law Society had done so without consulting them. So we've got another situation where lack of consultation is going on. We've let a builder make the decision about what should happen, rather like, so as we say in Conveyancing, data will say got all this upfront data. They say that, and who makes the loudest noise? The people that are shouting about things that they're making money from anyway. And obviously Barrett's have done. And
so are you saying that it's still very much follow the money?
Yeah, I must apologise. Well, no, I'm not apologising to Barrett's. I'm apologising because I'm not letting people know of the other companies. We will discuss that in due course, and we will actually sort of go through it. But I don't at this moment, without really what would solve so much of this. There are always going to be outliers, but what would solve so much of this would in fact be accepting the building, accepting, if you like, the bill that the Earl of Lytton actually wants to actually sort of put forward has been working. So he's been working on it for a couple of years. He's not something. He's an ex-surveyor. He knows what properties are. He knows what properties are about. I mean, if people would accept that, what a difference it would make.
Steve, before we wind up, the Earl of Lytton, are we close to having the final breakdown of as Hamish has alluded to?
Well, so what we need to do is we need to build support. What we've learned in our dealings in Parliament is Parliament responds to outside pressure. So what we really urgently need is to get the buildingsafetyscheme.org website around as much of the industry as possible. Now, I think there are many parties that could benefit from this. The conveyancers that have to work out if the freeholders can have a massive offshore trust fund or something to afford the remediations. They've got to become forensic accountants to work out the liability on there. That's killing their PI insurance. And a lot of conveyancers are declining the work because it's too complicated. And their liability for 30 grand is in their hands. They're pushing that risk onto their customers if they get the wrong decision. You know, if they say they're protected when they're not, then they're going to pay the price. So conveyancers, I think the small guys, the contractors, do they really want this race to the bottom where a developer offers the lowest price or a contract, some compartmentation or some cladding? Don't they want this to stop? This will stop it. This will basically mean if a developer wants to cut corners, they'll be liable to fix it every time. So they'll actually keep the contracts at a fair price because it will ensure that the work gets done and they don't have to pay for it to be done more than once. So I think those guys, I think the insurers, the lenders, there's so many professionals that care about good practice as well, surveyors, architects and so on. I think if the industry could back this and could do it publicly, public bodies, actually issuing statements. We've had a few already, and professionals sort of getting behind what we're doing. That would be massive, and then we could go to the Lords and say we have the support, and then we push it through.
We need an uptick in support, an uptick in response.
Yeah.
Any last words from you, Silas, before I hand back to Hamish?
I think my last thought is that the lenders probably have more of a sway to force opinion on this, or action, shall we say, on the basis that the value of their asset is depreciating rather rapidly.
Follow the money. Follow the money.
100%. So, yeah, that would be my take.
Hamish, would you take us home?
Well, I do think the Building Safety Act, if we want the answer to the question, the Building Safety Act is unsafe because the damage it's caused to the individual clients, those individuals who are living in properties. And it's because, if you look at it, it was because of that disaster that people investigated. If they hadn't investigated after, well, they might have done because there's bound to be other fires because there's so many properties around with fire risks, aren't there? But I think that it's been brought to light by one particular sort of disaster in order to try and prevent the others.
Well,
I don't think these builders are quite happy, or well, they say quite happy. They're happy is sort of the wrong word, but they are leaving. They are leaving. They know. They absolutely know. And we know because we got the same information as the builders received. Stephen is sort of, is sort of other people living in those particular flats. They've been told what's in it for them. Nout. There's nout. the builder gets away with the insurance. Everybody else makes loads of money out of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And why do they do that? Well, because all the people living there have lost it. They've lost the money. Anyway, enough of that. So that wasn't a very quick answer to a very simple question. Actually, it was. It's unsafe.
It remains for me to say thank you very much once again, Hamish McLay of Search and Convey, Silas Jellies of Weegaround UK, and of course Steve Day on his mission to sort this ridiculous cladding nonsense out. It should be said, not just at Artillery Quays, but also all over. I mean, there's general points to be made here. What I would say to anyone watching is this is an ongoing discussion. We will be referring to it quite a lot over the next few weeks. Earl of Lytton will be here to express himself fully. It had matters beyond his control, which has prevented his appearance today, but he will be coming. Thank you one and all for attending. Thank you one and all for watching. Without you, there is no point in us making these presentations. And we will be here, with any luck, 3 o'clock every Friday. Don't forget property quorum at 10 o'clock on Thursdays, and it's a kind of magic on Wednesdays. But until the next time I see all of you, there will be positive response to this. It doesn't need enough pressure. Every dam breaks if you put enough water behind it. With that thought, I wish you all to keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, wear sunscreen, and look after your mental health. Bye-bye now.